One of the most common questions that I receive is, hey, Dr. C, how many narcissists do you think are actually out there? Well, there's 7 billion people on the planet, so I can't give you an exact number, but I have a few ideas on the topic. Actually, academia will tell us that about 5 or 6% of the population would be what we would call narcissistic personality disorder, or actually, I think in terms of the malignant narcissist, where the narcissism is so severe and so deeply entrenched that it completely takes over. When we talk about narcissism, we're talking about people who have a real high need for control, a very low level of empathy. And then when we talk about the malignant narcissist, we're talking about people that are just impervious to the pain that they create in other individuals. There's a meanness, there's a harshness, there's a lack of regard for morality and things of that nature. About 5 or 6% of the population is going to fall into that category. Now, having said that, let's also acknowledge that narcissism is a pattern of life that is on a spectrum, like so many other characteristics, for example, like depression or anxiety or anger. We all have elements of it, but it's on a spectrum there too as well. Um, let me kind of take a look at the opposite end. I have a twin brother, Dr. Lee Carter, and he's a forensic psychologist here in Waco. And you may know that I've recently moved to Waco in semi-retirement. But my brother and I have talked about how many people do we think are really in the healthy category. My conclusion, and his is slightly lower, but my conclusion is that about 20% of the population, his is about 15, would be in the category of truly healthy and well-balanced individuals. Now, when we talk about that, we're talking about so many of the non-narcissistic characteristics. In that healthiest sense, there's an attitude of humility, which is not the same as being walked on, but just recognize I'm not the center of the universe, and I'm okay with that. You can still have strength and firmness and assertiveness inside your humility. The healthy personality is one where there's empathy, where there's a feeling of equality, no particular need to be defensive, and that's such an interesting ingredient that shows us how narcissistic a person might be. Watch how defensive they become and how quickly they become that way. Their anger, then the healthy personality is balanced and managed well. Narcissists don't do that. But my presumption is about 20% of the population falls into that. Now, the rest of it, we have this broad spectrum. And when I think of a person who is pretty strongly narcissistic, I'm going to use a mannerism or a mindset that's not technical, but let's say that a person is right around that 50% level. When I say 50%, sometimes they can access healthy characteristics, but just as often, they can access some very unhealthy things like the control and the dominance and the one-upmanship and the misuse of anger and the high defensiveness and not really caring that much about the feelings of other individuals. About 50% and above, that's where I would put people into that narcissistic category, but when they're there on that pattern. And a solid percentage of the population would fall into that category. And again, how many people are above that 50 level? I would say, let's just say at least half of the population is in that category where narcissism is a pretty powerful ingredient, and it's something that is strong and it doesn't take much to trigger it. And so then you have about 30% that are not as fully narcissistic, but it could be triggered and it can still be there. So people that are down at the 35%, 40% level. Now, I know that I'm kind of talking in non-technical kinds of ways, and this is based on my speculation with over 40 years of dealing with the general public through my counseling and seminars, etc. But let's just say that, 20% of the people, in my estimation, really get it. And knowing that there are many individuals who can go down that spectrum where more and more pathology takes over, especially in moments of strain and difficulty, I want us to take this as a challenge that says, well, can I be part of that 20%? Can I be one of those that says, watch how I do things, and I really do want to do things with decency, dignity, respect, civility, the DRC that I stand for. And I want to be a 20%er. I'm hoping that that's something that gives you some food for thought. And in doing so, I'm hoping that you aspire to be one of those that says, I want to be one of the people that knows what clean living looks like. I'm committed to it. Watch how I do things. I want to give a model worthy of following.